Okay, we live on LinkedIn, live on YouTube. Thanks for joining us this week as we talk about how to nail that next interview. I've got Maddie and Bridie here in the studio with me, Luke and Cam giving us some help as well. We're just going to have a conversation around, my advice from doing interviews and interviewing candidates with our recruitment business and also with our team members here at Best Practice over the last 20 years. In my role as a manager and a leader over the last 20 years, the last 17 running this particular business, my thoughts and my opinion on how you guys can take away maybe some focus points on how to improve your interview technique. It's my goal from this particular video and recording and live stream to help you to, achieve your goals. So if your goal is to grow in your career, your goal is to kind of either move up internally in an organization or move up in other organizations, so changing roles and moving up. One of those steps in that process is obviously to be going for interviews. So what I'm hoping to do is give you my thoughts on how you can improve that process. We've got these guys here, for their questions, a little bit more conversational to our usual format where I'm looking straight down the barrel of the camera to just be covering that. Obviously, it's good for us to go live. You will see in the background, we've got a dashboard so we can see comments. So if you are watching live on YouTube or if you are watching live on LinkedIn, let me know where you are in the world today and maybe if the sun's out or if it's dark. It's always exciting to know where everyone is in the different time zones. We're all trying to come together at the same time, but it's obviously different times during our day. So let me know where you are in the world that you're watching from. But we've got our big dashboard up here in the studio. You can kind of see a little bit behind the scenes. And I've got Bridie and Maddie. So what I wanted to do today was just get into some interview techniques, going for that next interview and nailing that next interview, maybe in 3 parts. How do we prepare for the interview? What do we do in the interview? And what do we do after the interview? Maybe if we talk about those kind of 3 parts and bring some thoughts to it. But before I kind of get into some of the notes I've got that I wanted to cover, you guys got any questions at all or thoughts at this stage?
I guess what I struggle with with the whole idea about an interview is trying to show your personality, but then also not coming across kind of too informal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Any thoughts on your mind at the moment?
Possibly how to wrap up all your skills and knowledge in just one interview. Maybe.
Okay. Cool. All right. So I think my first sort of position is you've got to be yourself. So it's about setting expectations. So they've got to set expectations. They've got to pitch their organization to you as much as you've got to pitch to them. I think there's too often in the interview process, we go for an interview and we're kind of worried. We're kind of thinking about ourselves. We're not thinking about the organization. And we're like, oh, they've got the power to give me a job or not right now. But actually what they're going to do is buy your services. So if we can actually take it as they're not giving you a job, they're buying your services. So you kind of then want to go at the interview as if you were, it's kind of no different to, you've obviously done some bar work, standing behind the bar and serving is they're actually buying a service and a product at the same time. And so you just be yourself. So I think what I'm looking for in interviews, I'm looking for cultural fit. So I want to see the honest person. I want to see how you are, how you meet new people, because you kind of, if it's the very first interview or the second or the third interview, then you're meeting someone new. So I want to meet you. I don't want to meet a false version of you. I don't want to meet the version of you that you're going to struggle to actually show up every day and be the same. I want to see Maddie, essentially. Because we had that viral post we put up, this post actually we put up on LinkedIn last week that went viral, which is hire for the will, train for the skill. I want to see that you're motivated. I want to see that you want to do the things we're going to ask you to do, not that you want the job, that you want to do the things we're going to ask you to do. They're kind of motivated in that direction. And then I want to see your true personality. Because it's going to be hard for you. You're going to get stressed if you turn up and you're trying to cloak who you are.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. The question about wrapping up all of your skills in an interview, we talk a lot here at Best Practice about sales and sales training. And I think when you're going for an interview, you are selling. You're selling yourself. So you're the product and service in that instance, and it's a presentation. So the one point that I would have is do massive information gathering. So when I say massive information gathering, you want to ask a whole bunch of questions up front And when they say, hey, tell us about yourself, you say, look, there's different parts I can tell you about me, but I really want to understand more about your organization. I've done a little bit of research, but we're here together right now. So if I could take the opportunity to ask you a few questions so you can tell me more about the role and what you want from the role, then I can kind of assess the right things to tell you about how I might be able to help solve those challenges. But also, I might not be the right person for the job.
Yeah.
And so I've got to do an assessment once I can understand, because I know my skills. I'm here for an interview so I can share what skills I've got with you and how I would approach the role. But I can only do that when I know a little bit more about the role. So you've given me a position description, great. There's an assumption you've seen a position description. There's an assumption that you kind of know what the role is. So if we've got those assumptions, then that's great, because you can say, well, tell me a little bit more about the role. If you haven't seen anything and you kind of don't know much about the role, then you need to say, well, I need to know a bit more about the role and the numbers that you want delivered, the goals for the role, the expectations of the role, so that I can present to you the right components of me, the right features of me that are going to set the role up for success and my contribution to the team. Let's think about football, high performance football. The role that you're interviewing for is a striker, but the goalie goes for it. The goalie says, well, I'm not there yet. I'm actually a really good goalie, but I want to go for the role of striker. And they say, well, we heard you're a good footballer. You say, well, yeah, I'm a good footballer, but I play goalie. I don't play striker. Like, I'm not at the front, I'm at the back. I'm a defender, not an attacker. And so actually, I want to keep doing a goalie role, or I want to move to a striker role, if that makes sense. So that's kind of, if you can divide the actual interview when you're sitting in the interview into 3 parts. The first part should be massive information gathering. The second part should be presenting your skills and the features of you and your career and your experience that match against the challenges or the benefits they're looking for or the goals they're looking for. And then the third part should be the close. So you want to get an indication of what they're thinking at the end of the interview. I can tell you about some mistakes I've made in interviews. One is that I've spoken too much. I've done too much kind of selling to the candidate. And if you can get the interviewers talking, they're more likely to like you. So there's a coefficient between how much talking you do and how much you like the candidate. So the more you can get them talking about the organization, about the role, they will feel heard. And that's the first challenge, is to feel heard, so that you obviously want to collect the information. So it's almost like the first interview, the first phone interview, if you like, they should be telling you more about the role to help you present, what you like about it. If that makes sense. If you are watching live on LinkedIn, it's good to have you guys join us today. If you are watching live on YouTube, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. If you have got questions, we've got a dashboard up here behind us. So if you have got questions, you can comment live on LinkedIn, you can comment live on YouTube, and we can actually read out those. I can cover off those questions. So we are here for you guys. I've got Cam and Luke helping. Luke behind the camera, Cam's on the dashboard. So if you guys have got comments, then you can ask questions. We will get to them. Okay. Anything else now that I've answered that? Any follow-up questions?
I think it just comes back to what are your tips and tricks for preparing? Obviously, you've got the call up saying, hey, we want to meet you. Normally it's a couple of days.
Yep.
What's your first action plan?
Okay. So my first action plan is a couple of things. One is, did you pick up the role from an online ad, Seek, Facebook, job board, something like that? I personally think that when you're looking to go to chase, changes in career and that kind of stuff, I like to see people actually identifying organizations they want to work for. So actually kind of doing, this is the kind of role that I'm thinking. Maybe you've got a mentor. So I think there's kind of a couple of steps before. I'll get to answer your question, because I think that's important. How do we prepare for the interview? But I think the framework for me is, I think it's good to have a mentor for your career, like a kind of a personal board of directors. Then be identifying organizations you want to work for or roles you want to do. And then with that information, you kind of know that, you can set up the background. In terms of preparing for an interview, then we want to kind of stalk that company as much as possible on social media. So we want to try and look at their Instagram, do a deep dive, their website, click on and read as many pages as possible. Try and figure out their customers, try and figure out who they're working for. The next thing that you can do is try to see if you can figure out on LinkedIn who your manager's going to be or who the key people are in the team that you're going to work with. So that's the prep. So you can kind of, if someone walks into an interview panel, you go, actually, I've seen that person on LinkedIn. I've seen that person on LinkedIn. I've seen that person. And if you can then find them on LinkedIn, then try and find them on Facebook and Instagram and find out what they're interested in. You don't need to necessarily like declare that you've stalked them all over social media, but you should. You should, because that's your prep. Because the first thing that might happen is actually, I don't want to work with these freaks. And so don't go for the interview. Or actually, those people are really a lot like me. Excellent. You don't need to say anything about it. You're more confident. You know the people, because if that information is publicly available, it's not stalking. And people are like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. No, you should. You should do as much research as possible, because what you want to know is, what's the problem statement of the role? What's the role that you're going to be going for? What's the problem statement? Are you the solution? Can you figure it out, or do you already know how to do it? So yes, you want to do as much research as possible. It frustrates me no end that my time is super precious, but my ego tries to put that away. But people come to interviews, and I was in one last week. The guy didn't know who I was. Yeah. He didn't know that I was the CEO of this organization. And just because of the circumstances in that instance, I had to be in that interview because we were short on people. And so I was in the first interview. Have you looked at any of our social media? No. Have you you knew I was in the meeting request. Have you looked at the 2 people that are in this meeting on LinkedIn before the interview? No. I kind of haven't done any research. I clicked a button and applied for the role, and I got an interview. Have you done any prep for this interview? No.
Yeah.
It's just no. The guy could have just, oh yeah, I looked at LinkedIn. That's enough. I looked at your website. Have you looked at our website? No. What do you know about best practice? Nothing. It's frustrating. I'm stopping from swearing because I've been told to stop swearing on LinkedIn, so I'm not swearing. But there's another word I would use to describe that frustration. It's frustrating. So no prep, didn't look at LinkedIn, didn't look at our website, didn't look at our YouTube channel.
What was his excuse? Or?
He's just useless.
Is it a bit awkward?
No, the guy was kind of I think he's just all stacked up on his ego. Yeah. I'm really good and I'm good and I've got an interview. You need me. I don't need you. Okay, no more. So what's the next steps? I said, there isn't any next steps. There's no more interviews. You're done. Oh, why? You didn't do any prep. Yeah. I did prep. I had to read your CV. And I had to, I Googled you. I looked him up on Facebook. I looked at where he's working. I looked at what he's done. I looked for his digital footprint. I Googled him. I did my prep before the interview. The next step in that process would have been asking me to invest $500 into a psychometric test. Am I going to put $500 into a psychometric test on somebody who's done no research on their organization? No, because I'm assessing for what I'm looking for is, does he get it? Does he want it? Does he have capacity? I'm not controlling the purse strings. I'm I'm not wielding power. I will or won't give you a job. I'm looking for somebody that I'm going to give real money to, hundreds of thousands of dollars in this instance. He's asking me to give him hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a job. I'm trying to get confident that I'm not going to just blow my money.
And no will.
No will. So not for us. So we were talking to him about a specific role that we need done, and he applied for a role that we need done. But in the interview, he said, I don't want to do that work. I want to be a manager. I was like, okay, so why are you here for the interview? So he's like, oh, well, I thought if I applied for the role, I could kind of do different things. Hey, Milwaukee and Wisconsin, good to have you guys on board. Trinity, hey, everybody who's watching on LinkedIn, let me know where you're watching. I can see Adam Dent's face there. Good to have you on board, Adam. And a couple of other people I can't recognize because I can't see names, but I recognize Adam. So you guys watching live on LinkedIn, hopefully I'm helping. This process of sort of nailing that next interview is no different to going and doing sales, like presenting a product or service. So I hope that this is helping, with any kind of interview. And I guess a lot of my experience is sales. So, 3 interviews a day kind of thing, because we're interviewing, to hire the organization if I'm out seeing customers. Let me have a quick look at some smart questions. Preparing smart questions, can you explain some of the day-to-day responsibilities for this job? So in terms of nailing the interview, how can we do a massive information gathering? How would you describe the characteristics of someone who would succeed in this role? for someone who has succeeded in this role previously, how did they organize their day? What did they focus on? Because you're potentially following the footsteps of someone. If it's a vacant role that's being rehired for, unless it's a new role. If I were in this position, how would my performance be measured? How will you know if I've been successful? What departments or parts of the business does this team work with regularly? How do these departments typically collaborate? What does that process look like? If you can get the organization talking, you can kind of try to get a better picture of what the role looks like instead of kind of finding out on day 1 or day 60. You want to try and we're trying to work out, you're the best judge of whether you will fit into the puzzle, whether you're a puzzle piece that fits into the puzzle, and it kind of is up to you. And then you can kind of say, this is how I can grow and improve and develop. Last one, what are the challenges you're currently facing in your role? What are the challenges you're currently facing with this role? Because you're asking the questions. So if you can get in early in the interview and get some questions in so that can kind of frame up the interview and the answers to the questions. If you're going for a government role, I heard yesterday, actually, I was in a meeting yesterday where someone said that with a government role, they went for an interview with a government role, and each of the people on the interview panel, and there was 3 people on the panel, were only allowed to ask 3 questions.
Right.
And then they're like, once they've asked their 3 questions, because they needed to make sure that every interview was conducted exactly the same. And so I don't know how that works. I don't know how some of what I'm suggesting would work, but then I'd also say, well, why would you want to do that job anyway? It's kind of like, actually, that's a great way. If you lock down your interview process and it's not organic, it's a great way to lock down your organization, and you're only going to get B and C players, and you're only going to get people that can play the game. You're not going to actually do the investigation and be thorough. So I think try not to make your interview process rigid. If you're watching this and you do interviews and you're learning about interviewing, try not to lock it down and be too strict. If you're in an interview where there are strict questioning, then the rest of the organization is going to be really strict, and you might be constrained, and that might hold back your performance. So you really want to kind of question whether you want to be in that organization. So you want to be, in your own mind, you want to be asking the question, do I want to work here? Because you don't want to come out of that interviewing, I really need a job. You want to be coming out with, actually, is this going to be a great place to work? Can I contribute to the vision and mission and the worthy cause of the organization? There's a couple of things, non-verbal communication. So leaning in, like right now I'm leaning forward, I'm kind of leaning in. I think that's important. We don't want to kind of be too, relaxed in our interview and like, yeah, this is pretty cool, and I'm going to be sweet here, and I'm going to fucking nail it for you guys. I swore, sorry, not meant to be. So
now we're like,
there you go. Dress for the job of the company. So if you look at social media, particularly an organisation like Best Practice, you can get a bit of a view of how people dress and how we present ourselves. I do think you've got to raise the standard. I am notorious for bringing down our standard. I kind of, t-shirts and Chuck Taylors, and so I think raising the standard it's not a bad thing to be just a standard above everybody. So don't drop your standards, because it's back to my first point about you want to be you. Does that make sense? Listening is really good. Listening skills, don't talk too much. Don't be too familiar. So that's what I said about, it's okay to stalk, but you might not want to declare that you've done that. Being too familiar is a cringy thing, and story topping. Yeah. So, yeah.
You don't want to say the name of their dog or anything.
No, that's exactly right. That can come out later on.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, so,
maybe.
Hey, I stumbled across you on Instagram, so that's that kind of statement. Most people are on social media now, so with public profiles. The interview is a professional meeting to talk business. So we're talking business, we're talking about the role, we're talking about your potential match for the role. It is about you, but it's about you also understanding the business. So it's not about making friends. And so there's a comment here in these notes about your level of familiarity should mimic the level of professionalness of the interviewer. But then you can go away going, actually, it's probably a bit too formal for me. You can give that feedback as well. So if we talk about kind of the beginning of the interview is massive information gathering, the middle is presenting and answering their questions, and then the end is closing the deal. Don't forget that closing the deal at the end is also deciding not to proceed yourself. And I have had people from time to time pull out. Now, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, bugger. That's a shame that I would have liked to have hired that person, but they made a decision up front, and I've got to respect that they, for whatever reason, don't see as a fit with the role, their career path, or our organisation. That saves a lot of frustration down the track. So don't be scared to do that. Go, it didn't feel right. It's not right. That's not for me.
I feel like in the current climate, though, a lot of people are, desperate for jobs that they maybe don't have the flexibility to choose. Like, am I okay for this? They're kind of jumping at things.
Whatever's available.
Yeah. What advice do you give to those people?
Look, everyone's circumstance is going to be different, and I know that's tough. We want to set ourselves up for success, but I think if you could be transparent up front about that. If you have to take a job that you don't necessarily like, the way to fall in love with it is just write a list of 10 positives. Don't do pros and cons, just do pros. The great thing about this role is I'm going to earn some money. It's going to help me pay my rent, pay my bills. I'm going to be doing meaningful work. I can contribute to the worthy cause of that organisation. It's going to give me some experience. I'm going to meet new people and build my network, and it's going to give me a good stepping stone to my next job. So I'm going to spend 12 months learning about this organisation. That'll give me experience to move me to my next step in my career. Write the list of 10 positives. If you have to take a job, be thinking about what are 10 good things about the organisation in the interview, and use the interview to find out 10 good things. And then also, post the interview, what are 10 great things, and then take the role.
Yeah.
If we focus too much on weighing up the pros and cons, it's a no.
Yeah.
If you're going pros and cons, it's a no. If you're going, actually, this is great, it's a yes. Any other further thoughts?
Obviously with interviews, there is sometimes rejection and stuff. What's your advice on like following up after an interview, even if you don't get it, like seeing what they thought and all that?
Yeah, I think with rejection, we can take that personally, but I think the interview process is this person for us or not?
Yeah.
So if we hold too much of I need this job, then we're going to feel that rejection, and it's going to be quite heavy because I really need that money. Not that's not great because I really wanted to help them with their goals. Because if your mindset is, can I have some feedback so I can do, how was my break it down. How was my interview technique?
Yeah.
How did I present? Was I clear? Did you get a good understanding of who I am and what I'm about? Because in that follow-up, you could say, I'm really disappointed because I'm really passionate about the worthy cause of your organization. I'd really like to help. The goals that you guys have got, it's kind of, they're absolutely aligned with what I'm hoping to achieve. And so could I work for you voluntarily for a little bit of time because I really want to help your worthy cause? I don't have any work right now. I'd like to come in as a volunteer, maybe work for 2 weeks just to learn a bit more about your organization, maybe kind of prove my worth. I'm happy to volunteer that for you so that you can do a deeper dive on me and see that I'm a great fit for your organization because I'm super passionate about your company's goals. But if it's, I really just need some money, well, then you're not going to offer your volunteer services anyway. And so really actually breaking down and saying, how could I improve my technique? Is there any areas you could recommend I could prepare better for my next interview? I'm going for interviews. It's my intention. What career advice have you got for me?
Do you think that's an important part of the people conducting the interview as well, to provide that feedback?
I do think so.
Circumstances where I've tried to do that follow-up and nothing.
Here's a really important rule for life. Don't put people on a pedestal. Don't assume that when you go for an interview that they know what they're doing, that they are 5-star versions of the situation. And unfortunately, that's going to be the case. And if somebody didn't give you that feedback, because we kind of assume that they kind of know what they're doing, and they're 5-star, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it looks like I know what I'm doing, but I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. I'm kind of figuring it out as I go. It kind of hasn't been done before. But I'll try to give feedback as best I can. I basically try to do it. If I know I'm a no right there and then, I give the feedback straight away.
Yeah.
Because I don't have time to kind of like wait 24 hours. Oh, actually now would be the good time to give it. I'm like, it's coming out right now. I'm definitely a no. It's coming out right now for these reasons.
How did that person the other day take that though?
I said, my words were, I'm not calling you, you call us. They were my
Fair
words.
enough.
I was like, you haven't done enough research on us. Happy to have another chat with you. You call us if you want to have another chat.
Yeah.
So, because he'd done no research. I was like, right now I'm a no. You know, your kind of skills fit. And I literally did a demonstration. I said, our organization's growing like this. We've got these gaps. You fit in this gap right now. I don't have any gaps for a manager. I've got a gap for this role. And he went, yeah, I get it. I said, you know, I'm happy to go further. If you want to go further, you call us. I left it with him. So my feedback for him was, you've done no preparation. So we're doing, at the moment, we're probably doing 10, 15 interviews a week with our recruitment business, and also for hiring people internally. So those are the kind, you know, that was one I was involved in. Okay, who else? I hope this is helpful. You guys that are watching live on LinkedIn, we didn't want to take too much of your time. We are at about just over the half an hour mark. I think we started a little bit late. So what else have we got? Don't be cocky. Take care to answer the questions. If they're asking questions, try to answer those questions, and then say, hey, did I answer your question? Are you happy with that response? And don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't appear desperate. We kind of touched on that. More questions for me? Do you feel more prepared?
Yeah.
I think it's like you kind of G yourself up for it to be overwhelming, and then a lot of the times you leave and you're like, okay, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I think it's the unknown that stresses a lot of people out, and it's hard to go into with the mindset that, you know, you're applying for a job, but you also have the power to say no. I feel like a lot of people, if they got to the applying stage, they really want it, and so they'll just take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a philosophy in sales, which is to have a full pipeline. So that's probably something we don't talk about much, and people don't talk about much with interviewing. In theory, if you are applying for, say, 10 roles, you've done due diligence on 10 companies, you can kind of get a gauge on the ones you like and don't like, and you won't be as desperate because you know that you've got more in the pipeline. So a salesperson should have a full pipeline, and someone interviewing for roles should have a full pipeline. And that's why I recommend that you do due diligence on 10 companies you'd like to work for, around 10 companies with the kind of role that's your next move. Because then you're not all hung up on, oh, I got an interview, I applied, I've got one interview, and you're kind of hung up on that, because you know you've got the candidates when they come for interviews that are kind of interviewing with 3 or 4 companies. They make me anxious, because I'm like, I need to move quickly to get this person, because otherwise they're going to take a role with another company, and it turns on my competitive spirit.
Yeah.
So if you can actually,
is that how you know? Like, oh, by the
well,
way.
sometimes they kind of are like, oh, their body language is a bit off. What's that all about? And then you might say, oh, are you in the market for any other roles?
Yeah.
I'll be blunt. I'll say, you interviewing anywhere else? Are you currently employed? Are you interviewing anywhere else? Have you had any other offers? And so then I'll say, oh my God, I need to actually move on this. I need to give feedback. I need to say I'm a no.
Yeah.
And I think ethics is really important. So if you can convey that you've got other interviews, scarcity influences people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we have a client that we've been interviewing for an executive role for. They took too long to move. They took a week to move on a really great candidate. And now they are kicking themselves because that person took a role with someone else, because they were a really good resource. We were like, you guys need to move. This is a great resource. The money's right. The skills are right. The cultural alignment's right. This is fantastic. And they the client stuffed around for like 2 weeks to make the decision.
What was the hesitation?
They're just slow to react.
Yeah.
Like, you need to move quickly. When good candidates come up, you need to move quickly.
I guess if you're putting out for a role, then you need to know that you can have someone in there within the next week.
Exactly right.
What's the point of putting a role out if you're umming and ahhing?
That's right. You should have draft contracts ready to go. You should have position descriptions ready to go. You should have your criteria. You should be all set up to make a really fast decision. That's if you're doing the interviewing. Absolutely. Like, you don't want to be going, oh, okay, all right, it's going to take me 2 weeks to draft a contract. You should have the contract ready to go. You just need to put the person's name in.
Yeah.
And then negotiate on the money side of it. Cool. All right, we might call it a wrap there. I hope you guys have enjoyed this slightly different format today with what's going on with Best Practice TV and Ask Best Practice. There's more coming to you. If you weren't aware, we've got a recruitment business, Best Practice Talent. I strongly recommend psychometric testing. So if you are doing interviews, if you are going for interviews, if you're looking at a next role, then check out PXT Select. It's available on the bestpractice.biz website. It's our psychometric testing product. Get a psychometric test completed on yourself. Don't wait for an employer to pay for it. And then you can bring some self-awareness around your strengths and weaknesses and start doing some professional development while you're getting ready for your next career move. So that is something for you guys. If you are watching, you want more insights into your psychology, I'd challenge you to do that. I've done it myself. Our whole team here at Best Practice has done their PXT assessments, and it gives us a good insight on our own professional development, and it's our own kind of gap analysis. So this isn't a sales pitch, but I'd highly recommend that you check that out. bestpracticetalent.com. You can check that out, or bestpractice.biz, and you can check out that PXT Select product. It's $450, I think, depending on the currency that you're trading in. I'd recommend that you put yourself through that test and get some insights into that. If you are interviewing candidates, if you're becoming a leader or a manager, the PXT and psychometric testing product sits between the first and second interviews. So the steps are phone call, if you like, first interview, PXT test or psychometric test, second interview, and it gives you a report that gives you second interview questions and areas to explore. So it's absolutely excellent. If you are interested in more information, we have a free guide you can download on the Best Practice website. It's the winning formula for recruitment. So go to bestpractice.biz, look at the menu at the top of the webpage. There's a guides tab. There's a great guide. It's free. You can click on it. It just opens up. It's our free guide, and it's the winning formula that we use for recruitment. I want you guys to adopt that as your own procedure. It's got 10 steps. It's absolutely fantastic. If you haven't downloaded that, do that right now as we sign off here. So if you don't see us right here at Best Practice TV, you might see us on Instagram, you might see us on LinkedIn, you might see us on TikTok. I think we're doing TikToks this week. If you haven't checked it out, the Kobe Simmet Audio Experience podcast, that's what this thing is doing right now, is recording the audio for our podcast. So if you want to listen back over this series of lessons, our tips and tricks on the Kobe Simmet Audio Experience, it's available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. So if you don't see us on all those other platforms, you will definitely see us right here next time on Best Practice TV. Same time, same place, next week, live on LinkedIn, live on YouTube. And I will see you all then with another great topic, talking about how we can help your organization to improve, to be a better place to work, a great place to buy from, and an even better place to invest in. Bye for now. Thank you, ladies.
No
Okay,
worries,
thank you.
thanks.
International Women's Day this week.